Jean Pierre, thank you so much for having us in your store today and
Thank
for
you.
agreeing to sit down and do this interview with me. I am a huge, huge fan of yours, and your store, it's one of my favorites. So.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for doing this here, and I'm very flattered.
Jean Pierre, how did you get started in the fashion industry?
Well, it's a bit of a long story, but to be brief, I would tell you that I was asked to invest into a small handbag company about 15 years ago. And when I did, I wanted to be in the fashion business, but really didn't know which direction I was going to take. And I didn't like the designs of that handbag company, but I liked the idea that it was in the fashion industry. So I invested, and then very quickly I realized that the designer was just not cutting it, right? Mm-hmm. So I tried with different people, and I still couldn't get out of these people what I wanted, what I had as a vision. So then I started designing myself, and lo and behold, my designs got immediately picked up and by very large clothing chains, you know, and so it got pretty successful almost right away. And I figured, well, maybe I have a knack for it, right? So then I just continued. And 15 years later, I'm here today, talking to you, and you're wearing one of my dresses.
And I'm wearing one of your dresses, and it's one of my favorite. I really do love this dress, Jean Pierre.
Thank you.
Do you remember your first designs?
Oh, I do remember my first design very, very well.
Describe it to me.
Yeah, it was a little satchel. It was gold. The handles with big rings, and it was a little bit an over-the-top satchel. And I actually presented it to the buyers at 9 West, and they immediately loved it. I was actually surprised, but they immediately loved it, and they praised. I mean, it sold very, very well, very, very well. Yeah.
What was the inspiration behind your work back then, Jean Pierre?
You know, I'm asked that questions all the time. Okay, and I'm not sure whether myself or most designers can really answer this with just a factual answer, because inspiration really comes from many different ways. And you know, if you've been around creative people, everybody functions differently. There's no rocket science, no science to it. You know, there's no logic to it. When you get inspired, it just comes to you. It can be in the form of a shape, of a color, or a texture, just a feeling you have about something, you know, and then you express it. So I think it can be applied for any aspect of creativity, you know, painter, fashion designer, handbag designer. So I cannot really give you an answer, just a broad stroke answer like this.
How would you say your designs have evolved over the past 15 years?
Well, it has evolved because just the fashion world evolves, you know, and in as much as I try, when I design, I try to really take myself out of what's going on. Because I found that when you look at everything that goes on, and there's a lot in fashion, right? If you look at everything that goes on, I find for myself that it pollutes my mind more than enhances my creativity, you know. So in as much as I see trends and I see where things are going, I try to just create a vacuum around, you know, what I intend to do, and just design from that point. So my designs are always a little bit fairly pure compared to a lot of the stuff that's going on. And however, I still, to this day, I'm still very influenced by major fashion designers, you know, that's because they have a feel or an outlook on what fashion needs to be, you know, that is just dominant, period, you know.
Who are some of those designers that you're influenced by?
How did I know that was the next question, right? Well, I mean, for me, the best designer this last 20, 30 years, of course it's very subjective, right? So I shouldn't say the best designer, but the designer that influenced me probably the most would be Miuccia Prada. And that is because across the board, if you looked at everything that Prada has done, it's always a step ahead of anybody else. So that's really my dominant influence.
Mm-hmm. Your number one?
By far, yeah. I mean, I'm not even thinking really of a number two. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of, there's a lot of great designers out there, really a lot of talented people. And in recent years, I've seen a lot of really young designers that really express some really interesting aspect of fashion. And you know, if you have an idea and you express it into a handbag or a dress or a pair of shoes, it's not easy. It's really difficult, you know, because you have this idea, you project it, and then you have to turn it into a product, right? And that's really the hardest part. And so you have a lot of young people that are just really greatly talented, you know. But you know, one must always consider and always understand that fashion is strictly a point of view. That's all it is. Mm-hmm. Simple. You know, there is no rule to it. There is no right or wrong. It's strictly a point of view. You want a blue dress, you take 10 designers, you're going to get 10 different blue dresses. Right.
Jean Pierre, let's talk about this bag that I have right here. This was the #1 bag in the US for 3 years. Why does everybody love this bag so much?
Well, first and foremost, the design, the hardware immediately makes you notice the bag. And from a practical standpoint, for women, it's just an easy bag. It's a bag that you can carry during the day, that you can use at night. It's a very practical bag, and it's of course elegant and affordable, which are really the design values that I put in all my products. It's called the bucket bag, and it was the #1 bag in 2009, 2010, and 2011 in the US market.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you designed this, did you know you were going to have a hit with it?
Not at all. I designed, not at all. I'll tell you a little story about this bag. I designed it in 2001. Mm-hmm. And I started selling it in 2002, and it really enjoyed very moderate success. And then I placed it in Nordstrom. And then everything changed from that point on. And it was amazing the audience that this bag had reached, because my clientele was from the youngest to mature ladies. And it was interesting because then not only I started seeing my bag walking around everywhere, right? Mm-hmm. And you asked me the question earlier. And that was very flattering for me. And the second thing was that the bag was getting knocked off or copied by so many people all over the world. And although I didn't like that really, but it's a huge form of flattery if you think in terms of design, because people don't copy a product that doesn't have a marketability aspect. So it's been just that bag alone is really the embodiment of how I would design anything. It's called the bucket bag.
And it's fabulous, Jean Pierre. So job
Thank
well
you,
done.
Jenna. Thank you.
How did we get so blessed to have you here in Key West?
Well, I retired here. That's the diplomatic answer. Mm-hmm. All right. I've been coming to Key West and the Keys for a long time. It's not like I was living far away. I was living in Miami, but a couple of years ago I came on vacation, and I just simply never left. Just like that. It was unplanned. There was no agenda for me when I came down to Key West. I was seduced, charmed by the place, which I knew, of course, but not that way, not in depth. And I figured, if I'm gonna retire anywhere in the world, that should be the place.
Mm-hmm. Your work is all over the place. Can you give us some of the locations, though, where we can find Jean Pierre's designs?
Well, my products are sold in about 1,900 stores across the U.S. Sold in Japan, in France, in Italy, in Mexico, in Canada. So it's a little bit all over. Of course, department stores. I won't name names, but it's pretty well distributed.
Jean Pierre, do you have advice for aspiring designers?
Well, that also is a recurring question that I get asked a lot. The design field and the fashion field is extremely competitive. It's very difficult to succeed. It takes really a lot, and many people come out of FIT or the Art Institute or other places like that, and many of them are just very creative. And I think what makes a difference in a fashion designer is that you have to be able to establish a feel or a look or an imprint of who you are. And because where I think the biggest mistake is for fashion designers in general, and probably more so for young fashion designers, is that they always try to copy and emulate bigger designers. And when you do that, you can never really sense and feel really what you're doing. I mean, you can design a great bag in the style of Marc Jacobs or Stella McCartney, but can you create one like that? And that's a different story. So I would say that if you're a fashion designer or an aspiring fashion designer, you have to stay very true to your creative verve, and it'll take you somewhere. It might not take you somewhere. That's I think that's probably the one advice I would give. It's kind of the same with music. I'm a singer-songwriter. I write a lot and I perform, and I see the same thing in music. Really, it's very parallel.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of music, tell us about Jean Pierre, the musician.
Yeah. Well, I think really I should have been a musician. Mm-hmm. That's probably the career that I should have pursued over anything else that I've done in my life. But I did not, and only a few years ago I decided to really take it very seriously, and I had been writing music and songs for a long time, but never really did anything with it. So 4 or 5 years ago I started doing that, and people were just really responsive to it, And I think I'm a terrible singer. I'm probably even the worst guitar player, but I play guitar and I sing. It's been great, But I'm careful of one thing, because I know my own limitations as an artist. If I can, I suppose I can call myself like that, since I sell records. But I don't play anybody else's music. I don't sing any else's songs. That's a different talent. I don't think I have it, but I do that very well for my music and my songs. And there again, from all the producers that I've had, whether they're in Nashville or in Miami or in New York, everybody feels the same way. Is that what I do is a style, and it's mine, and it's and it's kind of goes back to what I told you about fashion design. You have to have your own personality in what you're doing, and it works or it doesn't work. That's the commercial end of creativity is a whole different argument, a whole different discussion. But if when I write songs, obviously I write a lot about my own experiences. It is what it is, right? People like it, people don't like it.
I look forward to seeing you on stage perform someday. Let me know when your next concert is, all right?
Yeah, because I only do concerts because, in Key West everybody plays in the bars and all of that, and I very rarely do, because I don't think that what I do really fits that kind of audience. One thing that horrifies me is that when you have a great talent, I'm not talking about myself, I'm talking about a lot of the singers that you see around Key West. When you have a great talent on stage and everybody's just chatting around and drinking beers and eating, and you have this great guy or girl singing in the corner and nobody listens to them, right? It's just basically a background jukebox. Mm-hmm. And I feel terrible for them because I know what it takes to get there. And that's a personal choice. I have long decided that that's not for me. So I only do concerts, and probably in November or December, we've been working on doing a couple of shows at the San Carlo on Duval.
Great.
So you'll get VIP tickets.
All right, sounds good. Jean Pierre, what's it like when you see someone in your dress, in one of your designs, carrying your purse? How does that make you feel?
I'm actually pretty humble about it. All right, it makes me feel great. It validates my creativity. And it's tremendously flattering. It's kind of just a personal feeling that you get, right? I think it's tremendously flattering that somebody went and spent money and bought something that you created or you chose specifically to carry your name or whatever. So it just validates. It's a great feel. Yeah.
It has been fun talking with you today, Jean Pierre, and my last question for you is, I want to know what the best part about being Jean Pierre is.
It's probably being French.